All right, so let's get started. Let me put our answers on the screen. All right, perfect. So, Kevin, can you start us off? Can you read your answer, please?
Justin was asleep when a mysterious sound woke him up. It sounded like footsteps, and they were nearing towards his room. He quickly stepped out of his room to see what or who it was. Suddenly, a man with a mask appeared and started running towards him. He realized it was a burglar and instantly ran. But the man was too fast, and just as he touched him, Justin woke in his bed. With a sigh of relief, he went back to bed.
All right, excellent. Excellent job. And the task here was to make sure we're writing in third person. So let's check this out. Justin was asleep when a mysterious sound woke him up. All right, already off to a great start because we are talking about someone else. We um, initiate the story by saying Justin, by introducing a character. So we're not saying you, we're not saying I. So excellent job. It sounded like footsteps and they were nearing towards his room. He quietly slipped out of his room to see what or who it was. Suddenly, so we got to put a comma here because there is a pause when we're speaking. Suddenly, a man with a mask appeared and started running towards him. He, realizing that this was a burglar. Oh, again, we got to put some commas. So he, pause, realizing that this was a burglar. Another pause, instantly ran. But the man was too fast. It's a simple typo. Let's make that change here. And just as he touched him, Justin awoke in his bed. With a sigh of relief, he went back to bed. Excellent job. Justin awoke in his bed with a sigh of relief. He went back to sleep. He's already physically in his bed, so let's just say he went back to sleep. All right, so Kevin, very well done. A solid answer right here. Not too many corrections either, so your writing skills are excellent. Let's move on. David, can you read your answer for us, please?
Anna had a nightmare. She said it was about her mom dying in a plane crash. She was scared, but when she checked, her mom was in bed sleeping. She sighed in relief. When morning came, she told her mom, and she said, "Wow." Her mom told her that her mom died in a plane crash. Anna now knows how her grandma died. She also told her older sister and brother. They were both not surprised, as they know people have nightmares often. When she went back to sleep, she hoped she did not have another nightmare and went to sleep.
All right, very nicely done. And like our previous answer, we are using third person correctly by initializing our story with a character. We introduce a new character, and we are simply saying he or she all throughout the story. Very well done. So let's proofread this. Anna had a nightmare. She said it was about her mother or her mom dying in a plane crash. So dying is going to be spelled with a Y. She was scared. Put a comma right here. But when she checked, another comma over here, her mom was in bed sleeping. Let's change the phrasing here, just the wording. Her mom was still sleeping in bed. She sighed in relief when morning came, another comma. She told her mom and she said, wow. And she said, wow. So if that's the case, this is a direct quote. We're going to have to put quotations right here. So let's make this red. Anytime we're introducing a quotation, we got to make sure we put a comma and then the quotation mark. and our punctuation happens inside the quotation mark. So the period is inside the quotation. All right, moving on. Her mom told her that her mom died in a car crash. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That her mom died in a car crash. Anna now knows how her grandma died. She also told her older sister and her brother, and they were both surprised. Should be spelled differently. And they were both surprised as they know people have nightmares often. When she went back to sleep, put another comma here. She hoped she did not have another nightmare and went to sleep. When she went back to sleep, she hoped she did not have a nightmare. And let's, instead of saying went to sleep, because we already said went to sleep here, let's change it to she hoped she did not have another nightmare and could enjoy a good night. So essentially, just emphasizing the fact that she wants a peaceful sleep, not simply just saying she wants to sleep. All right, so excellent done. We have, successfully written in third person, and just a few corrections here and there in terms of the phrasing, in terms of using commas, and just overall making it sound a bit smoother. Nicely done, though. Excellent answer, and those are the only answers I received. So I'm going to move on with the rest of class. Here is our next topic that we're going to check out for today. It is narrator and point of view. So we're going to analyze what do these topics mean. Let's have someone read this slide. Aileen, can you read this slide for us, please? All right, let's try someone else. Hannah, can you read this slide for us, please?
Which one?
You can read, I guess you can read this first paragraph up here.
In every story, there's a storyteller called a narrator, and the narrator tells the action, the character, and the setting of the story. In fiction, the narrator is not the same as the author. The author creates a narrator. For example, in The Treasure Island, the narrator who tells the story is Jim Hawkins, the son of the innkeeper. The author who wrote the book is Robert Lucy Stevenson. Jim says in the first line of the book.
All right, nicely done. Thanks for reading. And this next paragraph here, let's go with Lee. Can you read this paragraph?
I was standing at the door for a moment, full of sad thoughts about my father, when I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road.
All right, so we are kind of jumping ahead. I meant for you to read this, like he goes on to mention this portion of the paragraph.
Oh, sorry. He goes on to mention that he is writing the story in the 1700s. Robert Louis Stevenson was not born until 1850 and wrote Treasure Island in 1883.
All right, excellent job. Keep it going. Read the that whole left side.
There are two main types of narrators, first person and third person. A first person narrator is usually a part of the story. This narrator used I and me in the text. Treasure Island is a first-person narration or a story told by Jim, who is a character in the book and uses I and me. Another example from the book. I was standing at the door for a moment, full of sad thoughts about my father, when I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road.
All right, and sorry, Lee, there's still one more paragraph. I don't know if you can see the screen.
A third-person narrator is the most common in fiction. This narrator is not a character, or at least not a main character. This narrator watches what goes on, but does not take a part in it. A third-person narrator only uses he, she, or it, never me or I. Like a first-person narration, the author still creates a narrator. An example of a third-person narration is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great gray prairie on every side. The author uses she when talking about Dorothy, and the main character. The only time that I or me is used in the story is in conversations.
All right, excellent. And the remaining bit, it says, remember, in first person, the narrator is usually a main character and uses I and me. In third person narration, the narrator is not a main character and uses she, he, they, or it. I and me are used only in conversation. So, we have a pretty good breakdown of how to differentiate between first person and third person. First person, essentially, anytime you are talking about yourself or any group that includes yourself. Third person is when you're talking about another group or another person or another object. And they provided some examples here from famous literature like Treasure Island and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to check out a few sentences from other famous novels. And we're going to decipher, is this written in first person or third person? So, number one, let's have Yan Fei. Can you read this passage in number one? And then can you also tell us, is it first person or third person?
At 9:30 that night, Tom and Sid were sent to bed as usual. They said their prayers, and Sid was soon asleep. Tom lay awake and waited in restless impatience. It's third person?
All right, excellent. Very well done. I would have to agree this is third person. Oh, can't really see that. Let's go with this background. All right. Number two. Kevin, can you read number two for us, please?
There were 6 young colts in the meadows beside me. They were older than I was. Some were nearly as large as grown-up horses. I used to roam them and had great fun. We used to gallop all together around and round the field as hard as we could. First person.
First person, excellent. They use the word I pretty often, so nice dead giveaway. Number three, let's go with David.
To begin my life with the beginning of my life, I record that I was born, as I have been informed and believe, on Friday at 12 o'clock at night. It was remarked that the clock began to strike, and I began to cry simultaneously.
Yep, simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
All right. And David, what do you think? First person or third person?
First.
Perfect. First person is absolutely correct. Very well done. And the final example, Hannah, can you read this example for us, please? All right, let's try Aileen. Can you read this last example for us, please? All right, let's go with Yan Fei. Can you read this example for us, please?
Since his papa's death, Cedric has found out that it was best not to talk to his mama about him. When his father was ill, Cedric has been sent away, and when he had returned, everything was over. It's third person.
Perfect. Third person is absolutely correct. They're using he and his pretty often. No use of I. Excellent job. So we have a pretty good idea of how to use these two writing styles. Let's move on to our next topic here. We're going to be reading a short story and I'm going to answer a few questions about them. There is a question at the top left. Let's ignore that for now. Let's read the story first and then we'll answer the question after. So let's have someone read this slide. Lee, can you read this story for us, please?
Dennis and Mac had been driving for almost a week, and they hadn't seen a single soul. Through a word, when they'd left the ranch, they thought they'd maybe run into someone, another survivor. There was no one. The roads were almost empty. There was an occasional abandoned car, but that was it. They drove mostly on highways to make better time. Mac wondered if they might not have better luck with the smaller country roads, but Dennis wouldn't have it. Those roads have curves and were thick with trees. There was no way of seeing danger coming. If someone wanted to spring a surprise on you, you wouldn't know it until it was too late. When the plague came, Dennis and Mac had been working on as ranch hands on a cattle farm. Both had just finished their first year of college. Dennis went to school on the East Coast, Mac on the West. They found that they were very similar people. They both studied hard and read a lot of books, but they both liked being outdoors. At the end of the day, they came home smelling of sweat and dirt. They quickly became friends. The ranch was a small family-run operation, with only about 50 head of cattle. The family that ran it, the Griersons, would advertise in college newspapers in the spring. There's plenty of ranch hands in the area who needed work, but Bucky Grierson felt city could benefit from exposure to country life. Young men would apply, and then the Griersons would hire about half a dozen hands every spring to help them run cattle. It was tough work, but Dennis and Mac felt lucky to be picked.
All right. Excellent job. Thanks, Lee. So, before we continue with the rest of the story, let's quickly answer that question at the top. It says to write a sentence using soul and plague with at least 15 words. So try to write a sentence or two sentences using these two words. Make sure they make sense together. And should be a quick assignment, just a couple minutes. Whenever you're ready, you can please submit your answer in the chat and we'll take it up. But remember, we're using the word soul and plague. And as a hint, those two words are also used in the story if you want any context clues. All right, so shouldn't take too long. We've got a few answers here, which is great. Let me post these on the screen. All right, excellent. So let's go with Kevin. Can you read your answer for us, please?
The plague stripped the village of all resources such as food and water. More importantly, it killed many innocent souls.
All right, excellent. Excellent answer right here. Very straight to the point, and a good job of using both words kind of, together. Let's proofread this. So the first thing is stripped. Should be with two P's. Otherwise, it's going to be striped. The plague stripped the village of all its resources. Oops. Such as, and then we'll put a comma here. This comma should be not crossed out. All right. Such as food and water. More importantly, I guess we can say, and more importantly, it's killed many innocent souls. All right. Excellent answer right here. Let's move on. David, can you read your answer for us, please?
Yesterday I watched a movie named Soul. There were people having souls switched. While watching the movie, plague came and I got sick.
All right. Nicely done. So we're using soul correctly, and we're using it creatively as well by talking about a movie. So this use of soul in the movie, it's okay. It technically makes sense, but this use is what we wanted to see. I wanted to see it used as a noun, not as the name of a movie, but simply a noun. So let's proofread this. The first couple words are misspelled. So yesterday, comma, I watched. A movie named Soul. There were people having their souls switched. While watching the movie, a plague came and I got sick. All right, solid. Very interesting answer. Makes sense technically, so great stuff. Let's move on. Aileen, can you read your answer for us, please? All right, so I'll just read the answer instead. The plague stripped the village of all its resources. All right, so should be stripped. All right, so we are using the exact same information as one of the other answers. Not sure where you guys are getting this. I don't know if it was here. Where is plague? All right, I'm just skimming through the story. I don't see where. Oh, here it is. Plague, when the plague came. All right, so it's not like you guys are using information from the text. So this right here, unfortunately, you cannot accept this because it looks like you just copied someone else's answer. But something that is wrong is that I killed many innocent souls. This makes sense. This is fine. And then this should be capitalized. Or actually, no, this should be a comma, not a period. which was very creepy. Everyone was scared. All right, so I don't know what was going on with the beginning of your answer. Try not to use anyone else's answer. It's the same spelling mistakes as well, so it's kind of weird. Let's try to use our own answers. We got souls used correctly. You're just missing plates. So yeah. Lee, can you read your can you read your answer for us, please?
After the war, there was barely a single soul left, but then the plagues came and overtook everyone alive.
All right, excellent. Straight to the point. Very well written. After the war, there was barely a single soul left, but then the plague came and took over. Yep. All right. Very nicely done. No corrections I can make there. Solid answer. So that's just a quick writing activity in the middle of our reading. So here is that first page. Let's move over to the next page. Let's go with Yan Fei. Can you read this page for us, please?
The farm didn't have a TV or the interment or a telephone. As a result, the first they heard of the plague was on the radio. Every night, the ranch hands liked to gather in the mess hall and play cards. While they played, they listened to the radio. The ranch was so far up in the hills that the radio only got one station. At night, they listened to the station's best DJ, Petty the Muskrat Coltrane, who spun old bluegrass records. Sometimes between records, the muskrat told stories. Dennis and Mac, though, thought he was hilarious. One night, though, the muskrat's radio show was very different. It couldn't have been more than 6 months ago, but to Dennis and Mac, thinking back on it now, it felt like another lifetime. The muskrat had been playing a cheery Bill Monroe song, Footprints in the Snow. When he cut out the record halfway through the chorus, the ranch hands stopped their game of Gin Rummy. They turned and looked at the radio. The muskrat always played a record all the way through. What could be wrong? Folks, said the muskrat, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm going to ask you to stay very calm. The manager of my station has just passed me a note. It seems that the local health authorities are...
All right. Excellent job. So it does cut off at the end. Let's continue here. Let's see. Let's go with David. Can you read this slide for us, please?
Asking us radio folks to tell you, well, listeners, that while a disease is spreading, the ranch hands put down their cards. Dennis and Mac exchanged a glance. Now the muskrat said, his rich voice sounding uncharacteristically shaky. They don't quite know what this disease is, but it's real bad. It's very contagious, and people who get it don't have a lot of luck recovering. Now doctors are trying to figure out a cure, but there's been no luck yet. So in the meantime, we're asking that you stay in our homes as much as possible and avoid public places until the disease dies down. One of the ranch hands, a big, cocky boy named TJ, laughed like heck. I'm not going into town. TJ chuckled. Got a date. The other ranch hands stared at him. TJ stopped laughing. Please, folks, do what the doctors say, the muskrat pleaded. I'm sure it'll just be for a few days. He was quiet for a moment. Then the ranch hands heard a sound of turntable needle hitting the record, and an old Earl Scruggs song came on. That was the beginning of it. For the next few days, the ranch went about its business. The Greener's sons told the boys not to worry, that this would all be over soon. They had enough food on the ranch to last months. In the meantime, there were plenty of new calves that needed branding. At night, everyone gathered around the radio and listened to updates. The news seemed only to get worse. More and more people were getting sick. The symptoms were strange. People would become violently ill, then fall into a long, deep sleep. The big cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, had been like ghost towns. No one would go out into the street for fear of catching the disease.
All right. Very well done. Thanks for reading. So that appears to be the last slide of our story here. Oh no, we got a couple more. Just a little gap. That gap is because we have a question. We got a exercise that says to write a short paragraph with at least 3 sentences. And this time we're going to be using the words contagious and cocky. So both of these words appeared on this slide. Try your best to write your answer. Again, write your own answer here. At least 3 sentences using contagious and cocky. I'll give you around 5 minutes. Shouldn't take too long. Whenever you guys are ready, we will take it up. All right, so I got a couple answers here so far. Let's try to get some more answers. I'll give you another minute in case anyone's still wrapping up their submission, and then I'll take it up after a minute. All right, so we got a few answers. Great to see. Let's check these out. All right, David, can you read your answer for us, please?
My sister had an illness that was contagious. She was cocky about not spreading it to her family members.
All right, very solid. Excellent answer right here. Illness that was contagious. This has to be capital. She was cocky about not spreading it to our family members. Perfect. Makes perfect sense. For next time though, let's try to lengthen our answer a little bit because the goal is to get at least 3 sentences. So we are under that. Solid answer, but let's add some more detail next time. Kevin, can you read your answer for us, please?
One day, the kid that was always cocky in my class, Michael, invited me to his birthday party. He claimed that there would be an insane show produced by his insanely cool father. He was being really cocky now, because at the birthday party, the show was boring. The next day, he became the new laughingstock because this news was contagious and it spread like wildfire.
All right, so this is an excellent answer right here. From top to bottom, very well written. A lot of detail, a lot of background information about our characters, which is great to see. And good use of both words. Contagious at the end, cocky at the beginning. Let's proofread this. One day, I think this might be a typo. The kid that was always cocky in my class, Michael. So we either use a hyphen or a comma. We can't use a mix of both. In this case, we're going to put a comma. Invited me to his birthday party. He claimed that there would be an insane show produced by his insanely cool father. He was being really cocky now because at the birthday party, the show, put a comma here, the show was born. The next day, another comma. So anytime we're introducing a time frame, like one day, the next day, 3 years ago, blah, 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 they usually follow up with a comma. So the next day, he became the new laughingstock. I think laughingstock should be one word. Laughingstock. Whoops. So it's not hyphenated. Because this news was contagious and it had spread like wildfire. Perfect. Great phrase right here. Excellent answer. Lee, can you read your answer for us, please?
There was a plague spreading, yet our family still went out into the streets. I kept telling my family that we were getting too cocky. Soon, they had the plague, and I was forced to move to our neighbor's house. After the cure was made, my family survived the plague.
Excellent. Very well done. So there was a plague spreading. Yeah, our family still went up into the streets. I kept telling my family that we were getting too cocky. Soon they had the plague, and I was forced to move to our neighbor's house. Okay, so we are missing our other word. So our goal here was to use cocky, which you did, and contagious. I don't think contagious is here. No, so it's not here. After the cure was made, my family survived the plague. So plague is from our initial question.
I meant to put there was a very contagious plague spreading, but I forgot about it.
Sure, no problem. Very simple solution. There was a very contagious, plague spreading. Excellent. All right, so now you're good to go. Very well done. So yeah, that was just one portion of our story. We're actually not done yet. We have what appears to be a couple more slides. So let's continue here. Let's go with Yan Fei. Can you read this slide for us, please?
The news kept getting worse until finally the radio station stopped transmitting. The Griersons called a meeting in the dining room of the main house. Everyone sat around the big dining room table where Aunt Grierson served Sunday supper. After everyone was seated, Bucky Grierson stood up. He was a short, plump man with a droopy, handlebar mustache. You wouldn't think it looking at him, but his voice boomed. Now, he said, I know you are worried about your families, and I don't feel right chaying you here while you don't know what become of your people. So anyone who wants to leave is free to go. And 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 I'll and I will make do. Dennis and Mac looked at each other. They talked about leaving but had tried to pretend their way it was. Pretend they wouldn't need to. They had hoped the plague would be over soon, that the world would return to the way it was, that it had all been a straight hallucination. Now that they had the option to venture out into the world to see how bad things really were, they weren't sure they wanted to know. By a show of hands, Bucky Greer's Grierson asked, how many of you want to leave? Mac and Dennis looked around. They were the only two with their hands up. The Grierson gave them enough food to last a couple weeks. Corn bread and apples and curd ham and syrupy peaches in Manson jars. Mac and Dennis packed up their things and loaded everything into Mac's truck, a sputtered old pickup. The Gersons and the ranch hands gathered around to see them off. Be safe, boys, and Ann Grierson kissing them each on the cheeks and hugging them hard and
All right, excellent job. And let's continue here. Let's go with David. Can you read this slide, please?
Remember your manners. As Mac and Dennis pulled away, they saw their husband holding her body shaking with sobs. A week later, Mac and Dennis had zigzagged through dozens of small towns and a few larger cities. What they found frightened them. Every place was empty. Not a person was out. Sometimes they would stop to knock on doors. No one would answer. If they went inside, they wouldn't find a single soul home. Sometimes they'd find the dinner table set, plates piled high with molding food. Every time they entered a new room, they both winked, thinking they'd find a dead body. But they never did. It was indescribably eerie. Sometimes, if the place still got electricity, they'd try to use the phone. Every time, no matter what number they dialed, the same recorded message came on. The number is not in service. Please check the number and try again. Finally, the young men decided to make tracks to the nearest big city. It would be a full day of driving, but there had to be someone there. You can't abandon a whole city. Dusk had came, and Mac was at the wheel. Dennis had been driving for at least 8 hours and was taking a nap in the passenger seat. They were passing through a long, flat piece of pastureland when Mac saw a flicker of movement in the distance. He stopped the car, turned off the engine, and shook Dennis awake. "Look," Mac said excitedly. "I think someone's coming." Dennis squinted his eyes. The flicker of movement was becoming larger. What had been a dot of motion became a long line. Stretching across the horizon, Mac and Dennis strained to see.
All right, nicely done. And here we have another question at the top. Just like our previous questions, we're going to use a couple of vocab words from this passage to write our own short story or, paragraph. So this time we're going to write a letter to your best friend, and it has to include the words eerie and flicker. So you're going to be writing a letter to your best friend, so make sure you're using proper formatting for this type of question. And let me just get rid of this. All right. And let's try to make it around like 5 to 6 sentences. All right, so I'll give you guys a few minutes, around 5 to 7 minutes to write this up. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so it's been around a little over 5 minutes, I think. 7-ish minutes. I'm going to give you one more minute in case anyone's wrapping up their answers. Please submit during that time, and then I'll take it up again in around 1 minute. All right, so let's check out our answers here. All right, Kevin, can you read your answer, please?
Dear Sean, have you seen the new movie? It is a really good movie. My favorite part is the start because of its jump scare. It starts with eerie music, then the screen is blank for a minute. Everyone in the movie theater is confused when I watched it. Then suddenly flicker of light is in the center of the screen. In around 5 seconds, the main character slashes the screen with a sword. Cool, right?
All right, excellent. This is a very solid answer right here. We used both of the words, eerie and flicker, in a very creative context in terms of talking about a scary movie. So very well done. In terms of the letter formatting, it's perfect. You got Dear Sean, comma to start us off, and you can just put the rest of your sentence on the next line, which is what you did in the chat, but it just didn't format correctly here, so I'll fix it for you. And yeah, you're talking as if you're communicating with a friend. So it's perfect. Let's proofread this. So, dear Sean, have you seen the new movie? It's a really good movie. My favorite part is the start because of its jump scare. So here, this comma we actually don't need, and it's we're gonna change that up to it's without a apostrophe. All right. It starts with eerie music, then the screen is blank for a minute. Everyone in the movie theater was confused when I watched it. Then suddenly, a flicker of light is in the center of the screen in around 5 seconds. The main character. Yeah, we can say in around 5 seconds. We can also say after around 5 seconds. Both of them make sense. The main character splashes the screen with a sword. Cool, right? Excellent. Very well done. David, can you read your answer for us, please?
Dear Burke, I miss you and hate that you went to our private school. I feel private in my public school. You were one of my only friends. It's like I'm the eerie person in the woods that people see. My mind just keeps flickering, thinking about you. I hope we can meet again soon. Your friend David.
All right, excellent. So I really like your answer. It took a completely different turn. More of a conversation, more of just a personal connection. Very well done. Again, you have the correct formatting down. We just got to put it on another line. So, dear Burke, I miss you, and I hate that you went to a private school. So, we got to change private, the spelling of it. I feel private in my public school. Oh, nicely done. I feel private in my public school. You are one of my only friends. Put a space here. It's like so this should be capital. All right, it's like I'm the eerie person in the woods that people, and I heard that you say people see. Nicely done. Let's see. So the only issue is I want to connect this sentence, this feeling, with the idea of being alone and being isolated. So let's say I feel, instead of saying private, let's say I feel alone and isolated. You're one of my only friends. It's like I'm the eerie person in the woods that people, let's say, can see but ignore. My mind just keeps, this should be plural, keeps flickering, thinking about you. Hope we can meet again soon. Your friend, David. Perfect. And if you would like, you can put this on another line and then put your name on the last line. All right. Excellent job. I don't see any other answers here. Aileen, I do see your issue about typing in the chat. You were able to type before, so whatever you did before, please try to do it again. Not for this question, though. We're done with this question. Let's move on to our next slide here. Let me just get rid of this text box. All right. Continuing with our story, looks like our final page. Let's go with Hannah. Can you read this page for us, please? All right, let's go with Yan Fei. Can you read this page for us, please?
I think it's some people, said Dennis. Let me get my binoculars. He wrestled in his backpack and pulled out his pair. Dennis put them to his eyes and looked through them. Mac heard him gasp. My gosh, whispered Dennis. What he saw was people. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, maybe a million. A swarm of people like the world had never seen. And the people were all running. They were running as fast as they could go, like something was chasing them, or like they were chasing something, or they grew closer. Dennis could just make out the people's faces. Their eyes were wild. Start the car, said Dennis.
All right, nicely done. So that is the final slide of our story here. Now let's move on to a few multiple choice questions. So let's take this first question. What news do Dennis and Mac hear on the radio while on the ranch? So what do we think? What news do Dennis and Mac hear? All right, looks like I got one answer here so far. Let's see if anyone else is going to chime in. All right, so we're in agreement. Looks like we're saying option C, which is absolutely correct. There is a bad disease spreading among people. Perfect. Let's check out number 2. What is the sequence of events at the beginning of this story? So I got one answer still. Oh, okay, couple different answers. So we're looking at both option A and option D. So option A says the story begins after the disease has struck and then takes the reader back in time to a point before the disease. Option D, the story begins as the disease is striking and then takes the reader 2 years into the future. So we're either dealing with going back in time or going to the future. In this case, in our story, we're actually going back in time. So option A is correct. Let's move on. Number 3, it says the muskrat says that the disease is real bad. What evidence in the story supports his statement? All right, so we've got a couple answers leaning towards option D, which is absolutely correct. The disease is very contagious, and doctors have not been able to figure out a cure. Perfect. This is exactly what we're dealing with. And real quick, let's try question 4. Why do Dennis and Mac decide to drive to the nearest big city? All right, pretty quick answers. We got multiple people saying option A. They want to find a person, and that's correct. That is absolutely correct. Very well done. We're going to stop class there. I guess you guys will probably finish with the rest of this story for next week. But for today, though, excellent job with your participation, with your answers. Very well done. I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.